Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam gave him Saraswatyam Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudiraya. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, we first offer our respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and Srila Vyasa Devi, the author. Our regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam by rendering service to pure devotees, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed to practically nil. And thus, loving service unto the glorious Lord, who is praised with transcendental hymns, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 3, Pure Devotional Service is the title. And it's the very, very final text. It's a very short chapter, only 25 verses. So this is text number 25. Did we put it on the board?
Yes, Prabhu.
Atabidehi Anga Mano Nukulam Atabideyanga Mano Nukulam Prabhasa say Bhagavata Pradanaha Prabhasa say Bhagavata Pradanaha Yad Aha Vayasakir Atma Vidya Yad Aha Vayasakir Atma Vidya Visarado Nipatim Sadhu Prishtaha Visarado Nipatim Sadhu Prishtaha Atabideyanga Mano Nukulam Prabhasa say Bhagavata Pradanaha Yadaha Vayasakir Atma Vidya Visarado Nipatim Sadhu Prishtaha Atabideyanga Mano Nukulam Prabhasa say Bhagavata Pradanaha Vayasakir Atma Vidya Visarado Nipatim Sadhu Prishtaha sadhu Krishna. Atta videyanga manonukulam. Atta videyanga manonukulam. Prabhasase Bhagavata pradanaha. Prabhasase Bhagavata pradanaha. Yadaha vayasakya atma vidya. Yadaha vayasakya atma vidya. Visarado nipatem sadhu prishtaha. Visarado nipatem sadhu prishtaha.
Atavidehanga manonukulam.
Atavidehanga manonukulam.
Prabhasase Bhagavata pradanaha.
Prabhasase Bhagavata pradanaha.
Yadaha vasaya saka atma vidya.
Yadaha vasaya atma vidya.
Visarado nipatim sadhu pristaha.
Visarado nipatim sadhu pristaha.
Athavi dehi anga manonukulam.
Athavi dehi anga manonukulam.
Prabhasase Bhagavata pradhanaha.
Prabhasase Bhagavata pradanaha.
Yadaha vayasakir atma vidya.
Yadaha vayasakir atma vidya.
Visarado nipatim sadhu krishtaha.
Visarado nipatim sadhu krishtaha. Atavideyanga manonukulam. Prabhasase Bhagavata pradanaha. Yadaha vayasakya atma vidya. Visarado nipatim sadhu prishtaha. Atavideyanga manonukulam. Prabhasase Bhagavata pradanaha. Yadaha vayasakya atma vidya. Visarado nipatim sadhu prishtaha.
Atavideyanga manonukulam.
Atavideyanga manonukulam. Prabhasase Bhagavata pradanaha. Yadaha vayasakya atma vidya. Visarado nipatim sadhu prishtaha.
Atavideyanga manonukulam.
Atavideyanga manonukulam.
Prabhasase Bhagavata pradanaha.
Prabhasase Bhagavata pradanaha.
Yadaha vayasakya atma vidya.
Yadaha vayasakya atma vidya.
Visharado nipatim sadhu prishtaha.
Visarado nipatim sadhu prishtaha. Okay, word to word. Therefore. Avidehi. Please explain. Anga. O Sutta Goswami. Manaha. Man. Anukulam. Favorable to our mentality.
Favorable to our mentality.
Prabhu say, you do speak. Bhagavatam, the great devotee. Pradhanaha, the chief. Yat aha, what he spoke. Vayasaki, Sukadev Goswami, Atmavidya, transcendental knowledge, Visaradaha, expert, Nripatim, on to the king, Sadhu, very good, Prishtaha, being asked. Translation. O Sutta Goswami, your words are pleasing to our minds. Please therefore explain this to us as it was spoken by the great devotee Sukadeva Goswami, who is very expert in transcendental knowledge and who spoke to Maharaj Parikshit upon being asked. Please repeat. O Sutta Goswami, your words are pleasing to our minds. Please therefore explain this to us. As it was spoken by the great devotee Sukadeva Goswami, who is very expert in transcendental knowledge, and who spoke to Maharaj Parikshit upon being asked. Okay, there's a small purport. Turn the page. Okay. Srila Prabhupada says, knowledge explained by the previous Acharya, like Sukadeva Goswami, and followed by the next, like Sutta Goswami, is always powerful, transcendental knowledge. And it is therefore penetrating and useful to all submissive students. I'll repeat it, it's just one long sentence. Knowledge explained by the previous Acharya, like Sukadeva Goswami, and followed by the next, like Sutta Goswami, is always powerful, transcendental knowledge. And it is therefore penetrating and useful to all submissive students. Thus ends the Bhagavatam purport to the 25th sloka of the 3rd chapter, 2nd canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, pure devotional service. Thus ends the Bhagavatam purport to the 2nd canto, 3rd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Pure Devotional Service, the Change in Heart. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Jai. So the change in heart, this chapter, it's teaching us how to do that. You know, I would assume I would need to go back and read all the verses to see if that was actually the basic premise. But since they titled the chapter that, you know, right now I'm assuming I don't recall all the verses, and I wasn't here on a daily basis, and I didn't freshen up, so I don't have a big recollection of the chapter. But because it says pure devotional service, the change in heart, I'm assuming that a lot of the verses dealt with that, and Srila Prabhupada is indicating in the purport that this transcendental knowledge is Sukadeva Goswami spoke to Parikshit, and it was heard by Sutta Goswami, that transcendental knowledge coming through the line of disciplic succession, it has a cleansing effect upon our material mentality. In our material mentality, it's all about us. You know, we just thinking how we are going to enjoy ourselves in life, in this world. You know, what we want to do, and you know, who we want to be with, what we want to spend our energy on, and what we want to try to accumulate, and how we're going to live our life. Of course, nature is a great teacher, and it's always exposing us to birth and death. We see it happening all around us. We see people being born, and we see people dying. And we should be able to vividly see our own self, you know, succumbing to death. And due to some sort of indoctrination, we may not see a rebirth, but due to whatever indoctrination or however we were taught, you know, we may think in different ways. We may think I can go to heaven or hell, or we may think maybe there's some chance in between, or we may think, there's nothing, you know, this is it. You know, we may think, we don't know what's going to happen to our consciousness. We may think all sorts of things according to scientific theories. You know, the evolution of life, so all of our atoms and molecules, somehow ever they're going to merge somewhere else, and exactly what happens to us, no one knows. So we have a civilization of people that don't know. You know, they just know how to make some money during this life and fight over it. And then they don't know what happens after that. So people will think according to how they were indoctrinated. But this transcendental knowledge is so powerful for even folks like that, whom anyone who went through the American public school system, you know, is a person sort of like that, especially if you didn't have a strong religious background. If you came through some church, then generally you believed in heaven and hell. No, you know, it was either heaven or it was hell. And, you know, a lot of people have went on to become people who have some sort of faith in Buddhist doctrine. And, you know, they just think, they think like the atheistic scientists, that it's nothing. You know, I mean, I got to keep taking, well, they actually think, the Buddhists actually think, I got to keep taking birth until I can become nothing again. How you become nothing again? You're going to become nothing again. That means you were nothing, and now again you're going to become nothing. How did nothing become something? But, you know, that's their conclusion, philosophically speaking. But, you know, most of the common people, you know, all they do is they're just interested in going to heaven and meeting their ancestors. They don't really think about becoming nothing. They think about transcending the misery of life and going to heaven and meeting, you know, grandpa and mama and, you know, the generation before, and they're all going to sit together and have a big feast and enjoy life. So, you know, everyone wants to enjoy, but in material consciousness, we don't have the clue. You know, we don't realize it's all about Krishna, or all about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all about the Ishwara, the real controller. We don't know how things are being controlled. We think everybody's just trying to control. And we, you know, we form governments to do that. You know, hundreds of years ago, there was just some powerful Khatri, a warrior, who formed the government. Because everyone followed his lead, because he was the strongest and most powerful. And had, you know, charisma and influence, and all the other strong and powerful people, you know, gathered around that person, and they formed the government. And then, you know, within recent century, you know, you have the communist idea, and you have the capitalist idea, and it's all kind of centered around a Republican type of government where the people kind of elect representatives, and you have local and state governments, and you have a big federal government there. And, you know, and they organize to control things for, you know, for each and every one of our security. You know, they make a they make a judicial system to solve civil and criminal problems. They make a jail system to lock up those who continually disobey. They legislate laws so that we can drive on the road safely. I mean, they do all these things, to try to bring happiness to the populace, to the whole. And because of, religious ideas, people do have some idea in general, and most societies, that, there is some controller beyond human control. And that is God, whomever God may be, personal or impersonal. But there's some controlling factor beyond our human existence. And therefore they throw in this devotional function of praying. So therefore we pray that the controller help us to enjoy. Make our life smooth. Fulfill our desires. And make everything nice. Again, it's all about us, practically speaking. You always have a few, monks or renunciates, people who kind of renounce from this idea a little bit, and they're just praying to God to understand, life beyond this world, to somehow ever transcend this world, attain what we commonly call salvation or liberation. And a very, very even smaller amount, they understand that service to this person, or I don't want to use the word thing, but this consciousness, whether it's personal, a person, or whether it's impersonal, they realize that service to that higher consciousness is really what it's all about. And they're just praying for service. They want to be an instrument for that supreme consciousness. And then there's even a smaller amount, and Krishna confirms this in the Gita, there's even a smaller amount that realize that it is the Supreme Person who's ultimately the Ishwar. And that our role in life is to have a relationship of service with Him. In the Gita, Krishna, he describes this as many have taken birth, but few come to me. Very few come to me. Very few surrender. After many births, one may surrender after many births. Amongst all the thinkers, the jnanis, and amongst all the fruited workers, the karmis, one may come to the point of surrendering to me after many births. So there's very few people like that in society where it all of a sudden is all about Krishna or God. Most of it, it's all about me. And when it's all about me, we're always in anxiety for our own happiness. In the 16th chapter of the Gita, Krishna says we become bound up in a web of desire to try to enjoy. We're always full of anxiety to try to enjoy ourselves. Something goes wrong with our body, we have to figure out another way to enjoy. But it's all about trying to enjoy ourselves. And we see that it's only that small little bitty fraction of people that are trying to serve Krishna that are really happy. And they can't be recognized by the rest of society. Because a lot of times they appear like ordinary people. They're in anxiety, and people think, they're in anxiety. And they think that people are in anxiety because something's miserable. Some reason they're not happy. Their kid's got a problem. Or, their mama's got a problem. Or there's a problem. The car keeps breaking down, and the house is leaking, and I don't have no money. So they think that the devotees just have anxiety, but what they don't have a clue about is that the devotee's in anxiety because he's not somehow ever satisfying Krishna. He knows Lord Chaitanya wants to deliver the people, but for some reason, he's not helping sufficiently. He's in anxiety about it. You know, Krishna, I got up late, I didn't get your temple room clean. Or Krishna, you know, I messed up dressing you this morning. Or Krishna, I somehow ever burned the sabji. Or Krishna, I went out there trying to tell people about you. I was trying to chant, but you know, I just became morose for some reason because I got hoarse and I couldn't chant. In English, we say that you get hoarse, it means you got a sore throat. Or I went to distribute, you know, Prabhupada's books to people to help him, and you know, some people were mean to me, and I got like a chicken. In America, they say I got like a chicken. I became cowardly, and I backed off, and I couldn't do it anymore. And you know, I'm in anxiety. I don't know what to do. When I try to chant now, I'm not happy. I'm just a fallen soul. You know, please try to pick me up. I need to somehow ever become devoted. When I'm devoted, I'm happy. When I'm devoted, there's no greater ecstasy. This is the greatest ecstasy. The pure devotees, they become so happy chanting that, I mean, I can't conceive of it, but can you imagine if you're right in the middle of town and you become so happy that you fall on the ground like you're having an epileptic fit, and you start rolling around, and you know, and you're wailing out because somehow ever you're seeing Krishna face to face, and you know, you're in this great love for that person. You know, he's you know, looking at you, his name's become visible, and he's looking at you. Like that happened in Lord Chaitanya's Leela. There was one devotee who was a scribe. No one could write better than him in Navadvip. And Lord Chaitanya used to have him copy many books. They called him Vijay the Scribe. So one day they're all having prasad at Sukalam Brahmachari's house. They're a poor devotee, just the Brahmachari's house wasn't big or anything. But there was a group of Lord Chaitanya's associates. They all went there and had Sukalam Brahmachari cook. And Lord Chaitanya, you know, he was very embarrassed. He didn't think himself fit. I guess, you know, maybe he wasn't a Brahmin by caste or something, you know. But he was a Brahmachari, a simple soul. And he had a lot of doubt about cooking, so they said, well, just don't touch it. You know, and I don't know how you do that, but, you know, he would stand there and watch it. And when he turned his back, the goddess of fortune came and entered into that rice. And so when Lord Chaitanya tasted it, he said, I've never tasted rice like this before. This rice is so wonderful. And then he would look at all the devotees, and he'd look at Sukalam, I think that's how you pronounce his name. Sukalam Bar Brahmachari. And he, you know, he would feel ecstasy just, you know, seeing Lord Chaitanya's pleasing glance, that somehow ever he had satisfied the Lord. So, you know, when they finished eating, all the devotees were so happy, they all just laid down and took a nap. So while they're napping, Lord Chaitanya takes his hand and he puts it on Vijay. Vijay kind of wakes up and he looks at his hand. And all of a sudden, he sees all kinds of rings on his hand. And then he sees that the hand starts to expand and grow. And he starts to see all the higher planetary systems, and he sees Lord Chaitanya somehow ever in the spiritual world. He sees all sorts of visions, transcendental visions from Lord Chaitanya's hand, touching his body and expanding. And he doesn't know what to think, and he starts to like shake, just like Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra when Krishna revealed his universal form. Arjuna is a powerful warrior, but that form made Arjuna frightened. You know, he saw everyone dying. Everyone was entering into the universal form, being devoured by mouths of fire. And it scared him. He saw his grandfather Bhima riding into that mouth. You know, his teacher Drona riding into the mouth. And he became frightened. He said, oh my Lord, please show me your four-handed form again. It's Vishnu. And so Lord Krishna took that vision away and revealed his Vishnu form, and then finally his form is Krishna, the chariot driver again. So in the same way, Sukalam does not Sukla, not Brahmachari, but Vijay, the scribe. You know, he didn't know what to think. His whole world was turned upside down by this vision Lord Chaitanya gave him. And he became struck with divine ecstasy. And all of a sudden, he was just shaken and began to like cry and scream out. And all the devotees jumped up. He said, "What's wrong? What's wrong? Did he have a nightmare or something? Vijay, Vijay." And Vijay couldn't control himself. He's like lost in this vision. And the devotees didn't know what to do. And finally, Lord Chaitanya, he's saying things like, maybe it's the deity. Maybe the deity appeared to him. He's saying things like this, And then finally Lord Chaitanya touches him. And he kind of calms down. But he doesn't come out, he's in like a trance. He's not in this world. He's in the spiritual dimension. His body's here. And there's a mind in the body, and his soul's in the body. But his soul is conscious of a different dimension. So he doesn't function properly in this world. Not due to being an idiot or something, but due to being a very great devotee who has attained spiritual vision. And he doesn't have an external vision right now. And so this didn't go on for a few minutes, but it went on for a whole week. So for a whole week, Vijay was walking around in complete ecstasy in another world. He would be standing stunned in the middle of the street. Devotees were protecting him, but he was just lost in spiritual consciousness. And then gradually he came back to realization of this world. So, those sort of things can, there's a whole never world of spiritual ecstasy and pleasure in life that we have no experience of. We have a little experience, as devotees from chanting and hearing and, worshiping the deity and serving the spiritual master and serving the deity. Like that, we have some practical experience. Like, Prabhupada says, book knowledge isn't enough. It's not enough to just have some theoretical knowledge. You need practical experience. So Prabhupada says, that means worshiping the deity. Because we're saying Krishna is the deity, but if we just treat him like a statue, then we don't have no practical experience. The practical experience is that we start serving him. So for us, that means the deity, because we're not seeing Krishna, and Lord Chaitanya is not putting his hand on us. We're not in spiritual consciousness. All we see are the four walls and human bodies and animal bodies and insect bodies. We don't even see the Devas. We just hear about these things and we have a concept. But Krishna appears as the deity. Unfortunately, for those of us in the West, we've been indoctrinated against worshiping the deity. So all the people from Islamic culture and Christian culture, they're indoctrinated against worshiping the deity. Those who were born into some type of Vedic heritage, they are taught to worship the deity. And those of us who have accepted a spiritual master, we are taught to worship the deity. Why? Because that gives us a practical experience. It's not just theoretical. You're not just reading that Krishna is the absolute truth and we should serve him, but we're seeing that somehow the absolute truth has appeared in his murti, or his carving, or his painting, and that I'm supposed to serve him. And the ever devotees, the disciples of the spiritual master, because the ever devotees means the disciples of the spiritual master. They're serving him. And, and if I want to serve him, I have to ask them, what can I do? If I just barge in, the spiritual master may say, what are you doing? Who told you could go up there? You know, like one time Prabhupada had to correct a devotee because they painted the deities without asking him. And they painted a white, no, it was either white or black, I can't remember. It was a black deity of Krishna. And they painted it blue. And when Prabhupada saw it, ooh, he chastised those devotees. So, but that's good, you know, if we don't get chastised, we don't learn, you know. So, you know, we have the, you know, step in line, so to speak. You know, well, what do we do for the deity? Well, you know, you can wash the plates here, or you can, you know, do this or do that, you know. And you know, then there's, you know, the whole system of taking initiation. But eventually, some disciple has to become advanced enough that the spiritual master leaves the disciples in charge of different things. Like, you know, Ramanujacharya, you know, he left a certain disciple, you know, in charge of something here. He left a disciple in charge of something here. He had so many temples. You know, just like Prabhupada, you know, he named some individual people, but he sort of left a system in place. Like his Guru Maharaj left a system in place. You know, form a governing board commission, and then manage the Gaudiya Maths. And they decided not to do that. Instead, they pronounced somebody the Acharya. And when the Acharya ran off with his secretary, then they began to argue amongst themselves, and they all said, well, this is my temple because, you know, I've been living there and I'm established there, and I have, you know, brahmacharis that want to be my disciple. And so they all ended up taking different things and preaching on their own, and the Gaudiya Math as an institution ceased to exist, except as individual factions doing things on their own. So similarly, you know, Prabhupada, you know, left his will, and, you know, he left the temples with a basic system of management, you know, president, a treasurer, a secretary, you know, temple commander, and, you know, go out on Sankirtan, you know, distribute my books, you know, bring, bring money back for the worship of Krishna. I mean, he used everything in Krishna's service. You know, he taught us how to preach to people. I've been reading Buri John's book. It's real interesting because he had a relationship, a personal relationship with Srila Prabhupada, and to the extent that at one point Prabhupada was in Los Angeles and Buri John's in Hong Kong, maybe there for a year or two, him and his wife, and they were preaching there, but they were all alone. And so then, you know, Prabhupada had some problems going on in America. You know, there were some devotees who were misinterpreting his teachings and were claiming that he was Krishna's incarnation. He was actually Krishna, God. And it was sort of undermining Prabhupada's international society and teachings. So, Srila Prabhupada was going to Hong Kong, and I may have a couple of incidents messed up because he went there twice. And so one time he went there and he explained to Buri John what was going on. I think it was the second time he went there because Buri John started to copy some of the ways that Siddha Swarup in Hawaii was doing things, and he was pretty successful. But he was doing things a little bit different than Prabhupada, although he was Prabhupada's disciple as well. And Buri John was copying that, as well as Sudama Vipra in the Philippines. And the thing is, his spiritual life was becoming weak. And so then, when Prabhupada was getting on the plane, some devotee asked him why he was going there. He said, just to save him. Because he was already having problems and he didn't know. There was only so much he could do with Siddha Swarup. You know, that was just the way he preached. He didn't like drop him off, but he couldn't completely change him. Couldn't like force him. So he just said something real simple like, trying to remember what's quoted there. Just see, Prabhupada says, just see. So, anyhow, how he goes there and Gurujam says, he arranged everything very nicely, and he had some success going on, but it was difficult. But when he said when Prabhupada got off the plane and his eyes met, their eyes met, all of a sudden the imaginary, he calls it the imaginary Prabhupada went away. That it was Prabhupada saying, I could do like this and do like that for preaching purposes. But when he saw Prabhupada, he realized that what he was thinking was for preaching purposes wasn't what Prabhupada wanted. And so then immediately Prabhupada started to correct him. So, how's your morning program? Well, Prabhupada, there's not many people here, it's just us. So, we get up and we start chanting our rounds. You don't have a morning program? Who told you not to have a morning program? Whose disciple are you? So Prabhupada started chastising him. It's him and his wife, His wife's even afraid to come there. She's like outside the room, So it's really interesting reading it. You can read it. And it's a very simple read. Each chapter he's got divided into, like where the theme changes a little bit. He's got a big title before it, and then he'll speak about that. So, you may be able just to read a page and get a whole pastime like. And then go on to something else. If you don't have time to read, you can stop there. And then there's some things that are quite long, where there's some pretty important interviews where Prabhupada has a reporter asking questions that go on for pages. And some stories that go on for pages. Then there's a lot of these short things.
Where is the book?
It's that white book. He says, My Glorious Master. It's an interesting book. Actually, he does a good job. He is an educated person, a school teacher, has a degree in philosophy. Prabhupada engaged him in opening temples immediately. He's one of the first devotees. Rupanuga made a devotee at that Buffalo program where he made lots of devotees. Lots of people became devotees. So the point is that it's all about Krishna and not really about us. And the more we can make Krishna the focus, then actually the more happy we'll become, because that's our natural constitution, to be absorbed in pleasing Krishna. And nobody's ever lost anything by pleasing Krishna. We're the gainer by pleasing Krishna. It doesn't mean that, somehow or other I'm going to become a superhero in this world. I'm not going to die. I'm not going to get sick. I'm not going to grow old because I'm Krishna's devotee. It just means that my consciousness is going to be different. I'm going to somehow or other develop some tolerance of the difficulties in this world. Just like our Asoka Amrita, he won't be able to come for Janmashtami because he has to go to chemotherapy on that day. So he's going to go to Janmashtami. He has the day off from his medical procedures on the day that the Birmingham devotees are celebrating in Tuscaloosa, which I think is the Saturday. Not the Saturday after Janmashtami, but the next Saturday. Like the 31st of the month, they have a Janmashtami program. So told me I'll go take darshan at that program. But he has to tolerate this. He had a life of, he sort of retired a little bit young. He was a chemical engineer. His wife was a hospital administrator. No children, lots of money. But he would travel all over the world to ISKCON temples. And he was Prabhupada's first initiated Bengali disciple. And, he had a sort of a life of luxury, sometimes they would have an event at their house where the governor of Alabama would come. So, but now, he can't even hardly tolerate a drive, from Tuscaloosa to here. First it was a heart attack, and he's been dealing with that. Then all of a sudden, back giving out, but then discovering that it's actually, some type of cancer. And now, he's being treated for that. And his wife, the hospital administrator, she's retired now. But she's able to get him the best medical help, just like Jayapataka Maharaj gets. To some degree. He doesn't have as much of an entourage assisting him. Just Rose, his wife. And, but they have all this connection with very prominent hospitals there in Tuscaloosa, in the state of Alabama, the best hospitals they've got in that state. And, they're doing their best, but all you can do is leave the rest up to Krishna. So, he realizes that, it's all in Krishna's hands. I'm just trying to serve. And he said he'll send us some, he's going to send some donation. I told him we don't expect anything. I know he's mentioned that he has the bills are just medical bills are piling up despite insurance. So it's not like he's got a ton of money to work with. He'll send some donation. So the pure devotional service doesn't mean that we don't face the same dilemmas everyone faces in this world, but it's how we deal with it, and it's what our consciousness is like. We have to make our connection with Krishna strong, so that when times are difficult, that it's not just freaking us out and making us all disturbed and not able to deal with life, but instead, we just see it as Krishna. Like Prabhupada, he said when the bombs were going off in World War II, I just saw it as Krishna, the universal form. Or when devotees would say, Prabhupada, what do we do when these materialists fight with one another and they blow everything up? What do we do? Prabhupada said, just chant Hare Krishna. Go back home to Godhead, Because we have to leave our body, sometime or another. So when devotee, we leave our body, we just want to continue serving Krishna. Like Narada Muni, he left his body, I mentioned it in the last class, I think he was just an old shriveled up man. A devotee who had done nothing his whole life but travel around the world, uneducated kid. So he would just travel around repeating the glories of Krishna that he had heard from the great Bhaktivedantas that happened to spend a rainy season, in his mama's lodge or inn. So he would just travel around repeating the glories of the Lord, and eventually got old and one day died. And at that moment, it said, just at that moment, like lightning, he's an old a spirit soul in an old shriveled up man's body that, never had anything, probably never wore shoes. And so one moment he's in an old man's body, suffering the pains of old age, and the next moment he's Narada Muni, flying around with a veena, with the best of Gandharva voices. The sage amongst the Devas. One of the sons of Brahma, who doesn't procreate the universe, but preaches Krishna consciousness to everybody. And can travel not only in this universe, but even to Vaikuntha. And becomes like a special instrument in the Lord's pastime, something like a director. Not exactly a director. Krishna is like the director. It's maybe, he has maybe some powers like that, but a person who, maybe like a narrator or somebody who intervenes in the pastimes to make things go a certain way. And sometimes the people are afraid of him because they know when he comes there's going to be some changes, like who told Kamsa where Krishna was? Narada Muni. So, even the demons, respect Narada Muni because he's like transcendental, you can't hurt him. He's like a transcendental person in the material world. So one moment an old man, next moment not a movie. So that's real life, is in Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, John, when you die, where are you going? All those things you've been thinking about all your life, you're going to have to come back for. You know, maybe next time you'll get to win the state New York high school football championship.
How'd you know I wanted to do that?
Huh?
How'd you know?
Because you told me you played football and you were, you know, and so I can just tell with how you,
It's kind of
that,
funny.
how that quest for success was, you know, consuming, you know, it's consuming. That's how we're trained up in this society. To achieve different material things. That's how they keep us motivated. See, if Gokula doesn't watch it, good thing he's been practicing Krishna consciousness for so long, or he would have wanted to come back and been the New York State champion for track.
I was.
He was, but he would have wanted to do it at the Olympics.
Yeah.
Because he got cheated out of doing it at the Olympics.
I didn't know.
Somebody gave him a Bhagavad Gita or something, you know.
What's that?
Somebody gave you a Bhagavad Gita and you never got to the Olympics. The way Dhanavir Maharaj was actually an Olympian volleyball player.
He was on the team. And they got all angry because he started becoming bronze.
Who was?
Dhanavir.
Dhanavir. He was volleyball player.
He was an Olympian for the United States Olympic volleyball team. So we have to hone in. I mean, it's all right if that's what you want to come back and do. You know, serving Krishna, He'll bless you. You know, you'll have a much better opportunity, and He'll help you. He'll help you even to remember Him. You know, Krishna never lets us down. Whatever devotional service we do, you know, you'll start from there. So like all the difficulties to just maybe to be able to chant without so much doubt plaguing us. Next time you won't have to go through as much of that. You'll start from where you left off. Nobody else, you don't always get that guarantee. Like, you may be a football player in one lifetime, there's no guarantee you're going to be a football player in the next lifetime.
You might be a cheerleader.
Yeah, you could be. You could be. Could be lower than that, but in spiritual life, Krishna is always, He's going to keep what advancement you made. And when somehow ever He's able to arrange without taking away your sweet will, you'll begin from where you left off. So when I came, I didn't, have any devotional qualification. It was like hard. It was hard. It was really hard in the beginning. Really, really hard. But I just did it because I was trying to be a disciple. So I did it. And it take years and years of purification, just to transcend the things that plague a neophyte, a person just coming from the material world, which is full of material desire and ambition, and doesn't have any spiritual tendencies to serve Krishna. You want to become Krishna. You don't want to serve Krishna, you want to become Krishna. You're all full of these impersonal ideas, and you want liberation just to enjoy being supreme, getting ahead of the pack, so to speak, And then, you realize the whole philosophy of spiritual master's teaching, it means serving the supreme person. Same thing, you were kind of indoctrinated in your Christian religion if you came through that, it was kind of almost like a bummer, and that's a slang term. Americans say it's a bummer, a depressing thing. Oh, golly, just got to serve God. Krishna's God, and I just have to serve Him all the time, and I don't have any tendency to want to do that, and I don't like serving. I like to make money for service. And I like to spend it on myself, my sense gratification. That's what I like to do, and I like to do things I like to do. And now they're telling me, just a brahmachari, to stand up here and paint this room. And my arm's getting tired painting this room. and this guy painted, you know. So it takes a purification where all that becomes ecstasy instead of, you know, not happiness, instead of, you know, not, drudgery, you know, because it's not for me. When nobody's paying me, I'm serving a spiritual master and he promises purification. But, you know, I don't see no light at the end of the tunnel. All I see is my sick mentality. You know, so it's hard. It's hard when we're consumed by those modes. But by practice, you know, that makes perfect. I mean, Prabhupada used that phrase. I don't know who said it. I mean, it's probably just an axiom that's there since time immemorial, you know. Probably everyone said it since time immemorial. Practice makes perfect. You know, practice, and eventually we get, you know, we become a real devotee. Not just someone practicing, but, you know, a real devotee. But, you know, it's the practice that got us to where we're at. And that's what Prabhupada emphasized. You know, don't ever think that the practice is not important. It's the practice that gets us to where we're going. It's like basketball players. If they stop practicing and they go out for a big game, they're going to get stomped because they haven't been practicing. Their game plan can go haywire. You have to practice. If you're fighting a war, and you know, and you and the generals haven't met, you haven't been like planning your strategy, and you know you don't, and you know the troops have been laying around, eating and sleeping and drinking, and you know finding prostitutes or whatever, and then all of a sudden, all right, here comes the enemy. Everybody get up. We're going to go out there and fight, and you got some disciplined army on the other side. You have the face. They're probably just going to walk over you. So, I mean, you know, the practice is important. I mean, that's why Gokula still gets up. I mean, he could sleep in and say, I'm just old and sick, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, why does he bother to still get up? Because, you know, it's the practice that keeps you strong, you know? Anyway, we better stop. It's getting late. Okay, Srila Prabhupada.